And starship goal. That's the way to do it. Herrera. Ibrahimovic. With 3.5 minutes to play. Now Di Maria wants it back. Gets it back. Fantastic.
That's the luck of the bounce off Gaston Ramirez. Top try! What a day this is turning out to be for Manchester United.
Mason Greenwood hits the spot. In he goes towards Muriel. What a save, David De Gea. Brilliant save. Thought about shooting, thought better on it. Martial! Comes in brilliantly. Dan James. Dream debut. Daniel James.
Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we are going to be looking at United's Desmond draw with Southampton at Old Trafford, and then an encouraging but albeit slightly undeserved 2-0 win at Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace, before looking ahead to United's semi-final clash against Chelsea in the FA Cup and a home game to West Ham next Wednesday. With me today, I welcome back Jason, but have a new panelist here. It's one of our writers, Prashanth. Welcome. Why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Arjun, for having me. My name is Prashanth Nair. I'm from India. I've been a United supporter since the year 2002. That's basically because my father is a huge Liverpool fan, so I'm born to a Liverpool supporter father, and right now married to a Liverpool fan as well.
Oh boy.
So it's been quite 4-5 weeks for me right now. So yes, I'm enjoying it. But I mean, I don't blame them because my childhood was good. So they've always been crying.
Well, at least you have that 4-0 and the Arsenal game to hold over their heads just a little bit. But as always, Jason, it's good to hear from you. How's things across the Atlantic?
Oh man, they're pretty good. The only thing that's a problem right now, besides the obvious, is keep trying to figure out this timing between the three of us. With all the time differences, I still can't quite get it down. But like in my mind, United games kick off at 3:00 in the afternoon and 10:00 in the morning, and I don't know why they kick off so early, but, but that's how it is for me.
All right, then. Well, one of the United games did kick off. Actually, both of them kicked off late. So the first one on Monday night, United went in to the Southampton game on a 5-game winning streak in all competitions after, 4 back-to-back wins by a 3-goal margin, and as well as that, a 2-1 win at Norwich in the FA Cup, but fell down a goal by their own doing. A poor pass from De Gea, a poor touch from Pogba gave Southampton possession after their high pressing all game, really, and a really good pass to Stuart Armstrong was slotted away, and United found themselves 1-0 down. Rashford and Martial combined, and Bruno as well, to get United back ahead before the end of the half. And while United kept huffing and puffing, missed a few chances, then started to play defensively, and then went down to 10 men, Southampton equalised really late on, 97th minute, with a tap-in from Martin Obafemi. Jason, I'll ask you first. Obviously, there were good things to take from the game, but I think for every United fan, that felt more like a loss than a draw. Obviously, they lost ground in the race for top 4. They could have gone to 3rd if they'd have won and held out for that win. What were the 3 things that you found the most painful or annoying to have dealt with in that game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, going a goal down right off the bat, you never want that, because then you need to score at least 2 to win, right? So it sounds super obvious to say, but obviously in football, it's not easy to score multiple goals in a game. So once you go a goal down, right away you felt like, okay, this is going to be a dogfight. But then they get the 2 quick ones, so you're thinking, all right, this is just going to be another one of those United matches like we've seen since the break, where I felt like we were going to put 4 or 5 behind behind the keeper and just pull away, but we just never could. So I guess that's the annoyance number one, going down a goal. And then annoyance number two would be really taking control of the game and then allowing them to regain control. And then this is kind of nitpicky, but I don't know how else to say it. But with the sub rule being what it is, allowing to do 5, but having to do them in 3 intervals, I don't think you can let yourself be in a position where if you have an injured player, you can't sub them off. So I think Ole's tactics have been wonderful for weeks on end, but to put yourself in that position, I think was not a good thing. What did you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, obviously, I think the team looks really sluggish, and I think to start with, and obviously when you don't make changes for, I think it was since the Sheffield United game, there's been no changes in the starting 11. That's obviously going to take its toll. Pogba obviously just came back from a long-term injury, and while he has had a few weeks to get back into the run of things, obviously he's not been playing as much football in this much quantity for such a long period of time, and he's obviously going to make mistakes. But I'm more annoyed that no one actually told him man on, because you would have thought if you got a word in his ear, he would have just played it straight back to De Gea. But that's something else that needs to be looked into. The equaliser was painful because obviously we went down to 10 men. I think that's unfair that we weren't allowed to do one for injury, because I remember them saying we'll allow an extra time slot for injury, but I don't know whether that, I guess that didn't actually happen then, because that's really unfortunate.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I understand, like, they have to be hard and fast with it because they can't. Otherwise, players will just fake injuries, correct? Like, they'll just sit there and act like they're injured.
Sure. So
that you can get an extra sub. But, I mean, to be reduced to 10 men because of an injury, I mean, that's in a time when we're supposed to be, promoting safety in soccer with all that's going on. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Like, that definitely, I mean, the fact that we were reduced to 10 is pretty much why they equalized in that time. But, yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No problem. What I did think is that he probably could have made the McTominay and James changes at the same time, probably as the Luke Shaw one, but I guess that was probably because they weren't warmed up or something. But let's move on to one call that was, I mean, VAR has apparently been in United's favour all season, but there was one call that wasn't in United's favour that game. Prashant, could you talk me through that Oriol Romeu challenge? Do you think that was a red card?
Yes, it had to be a red card. I mean, VAR has been inconsistent post the lockdown. I mean, I don't want to comment on what happened at the start of the season, but post the project restart, VAR has been super inconsistent. Chris Kavanagh had a dismal game, to say the least. I mean, to be very fair, he had a shambolic game. I understand he might have not seen the Oriol Romeu challenge on the left ankle of Greenwood, but come on, you saw Nketiah red a couple of weeks back. That was a straight red. On the other hand side, you had a James Sorosky challenge in the Burnley game where he was not given a red. How inconsistent can VAR get, for that matter of fact? I mean, when you think in hindsight, we were reduced to 10 men, yes, but so should have Southampton. If it would have been a 10 men, probably we would have seen a different result. And let's also understand, for a matter of fact, that Southampton as a team is a very pressing team. Ralph Hasenhüttl has always laid out a team which is all about pressing, and he's also nicknamed as the Klopp of the Alps. One of the reasons why his team is so hard to break down is that the midfield is all over your place. It's all on your face, to be a matter of fact, and we saw it in the Pogba's mistake in the first part. He was just outside the box. They pressed him on all 3 sides, so he had to lose the ball. It was just a matter of fact. Now, coming back to the VAR point, I personally think it should be just get rid of VAR, or if you're using it, use it to maximum efficiency and accuracy. One-off calls I can surely understand, but that was just poor refereeing. I mean, I have no clue whatsoever why on earth was not VAR used for. Then what is the whole purpose of the VAR?
No, thank you. Yeah, we'll get into that more against Palace, but yeah, you're quite right. I think that was a straight red card, especially when you've seen what's happened with Nketiah, like you said. And I think building on that, I think Trent obviously should have been sent off against Arsenal as well. Obviously, that draw was gut punching. United did then not climb to third, and it would have changed the mood going into the Palace game. Of course, what were both your thoughts going into that game, especially when you saw the lineups? Jason, I'll ask you first.
So yeah, I mean, obviously having trouble at the back, like with injury, with no Shaw, no Williams, and then having to plug a player in who hadn't played in a really long time, right off the bat, you're definitely scared because you just don't know how they're going to react, right? It's just a tough. I mean, these are like almost playoff games, and having to and like you said earlier, we had pretty much run out the same lineup for the last month, right? I mean, and it's been playing pretty well up until the Southampton game, and even though the Southampton game isn't exactly the result you wanted, they still at times looked like the squad that had been dominating so well. So then you have to put Fosu Mensah in there, who hasn't really played, and I'll be honest, I thought he did what he had to do. He had to he wasn't particularly great, but he didn't hurt them either. So so that was the first fear right off the bat, just having a player who hadn't played in a long time. But seeing Fernandes out there and Rashford and Pogba, and at least knowing you had that Hart and Greenwood and Maguire and Lindelof, and Wan-Bissaka, you felt like you obviously had a squad capable of winning. And then the way the game played out, I'm not looking for style points right now. I just want results, and they got the result they needed. So that's the best I can really say about the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's one player that was probably a surprise on that team sheet. Timothy Fosu Mensah, obviously not played for United since May 2017, having been on 2 loans to Crystal Palace themselves and then Fulham last season. Prashant, what did you think of his performance as a whole?
I was pretty happy that he made the lineup, to be very fair. I'm not a huge Timothy Fosu Mensah fan as such, but what was important was we needed someone who understood the defensive value of the team. Remember for a fact that we signed him from Ajax, and he was in a youth academy during the Van Gaal era, and we started him in a FA Cup semi-final, and it was very crucial. We also forget for a matter of fact that he was a right back ahead of Antonio Valencia for quite some time until we decided to send him on loan. So I had no doubts about his defensive capabilities. But like Jason said, someone who's not started for 2.5, 3 years or 16 months post the injury, yes, I had my doubts. But where I would want to give him credit is matter of fact that he understood the game. He knew he couldn't go ahead because you had Townsend and Zaha who were changing flanks on consistent basis. He also made sure that there's not a lot of great deal which Townsend could do because he just didn't allow him any kind of space. So it was just an average performance for me. He didn't offer anything on great, an attack, nor was he defensively very weak. So I was pretty happy with the way the performance had turned out. Also, it gave me a much more happiness to see that Shaw or Brandon Williams did not even, were required because I'm pretty hopeful that we are going to start them on the FA Cup game, and that's pretty important for us as well. Mm-hmm. So I was overall very happy with Fosu Mensah's performance. But one thing which I really want to highlight during the whole backline was, for a matter of fact, that we have been very critical of Victor Lindelof's performance. I mean, I know all the blame is got for Harry Maguire for him being slow, etc. But yesterday, Lindelof put in a shift. I mean, there were 3 or 4 clearances which Victor Lindelof did, and I expected Harry Maguire to do that because I think he was in a better position to do. But yet again, got beaten by pace. It was Victor Lindelof who kind of saved the defense. And post Victor Lindelof, it was, I think, Timothy Fosu Mensah who had a better game than, I believe, Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well. I mean, he's starting to look jaded out now, probably because of continuous games.
Yeah, well, that's true. We'll talk about Victor Lindelof. Well, slightly more about the penalty, but yeah, of course. I mean, he did put in a good shift. There was that one issue. Lindelof obviously against Zaha, you always back Zaha to get past Lindelof, and it looked clumsy when he brought him down in the box. VAR had a look throughout the play, but obviously the ball didn't go out of play for 2 minutes, and when it did, Rashford was actually scoring. But Jason, what did you think overall? Did you think it was a penalty? Do you think VAR got that one wrong? Or do you think that, like what Ollie said, that because he did get a foot on it, it was actually fair enough?
Well, there's this kind of notion where people think if you get the ball first, it's fine, right? But if you look at the penalty rule, there's tackling opponent from behind is not okay. There's charging into opponent is not okay. There's reckless play is not okay. So I think that if you're talking about, we are talking about the Zaha challenge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a case to be made that that's a penalty, because it is pretty reckless. It is at best from the side, right? But pretty much from behind, and he gets a piece of the ball. But there's this notion that commentators make, and I see on Twitter all the time, where people say, like, "Oh, he got a piece of the ball, so it's fine," when a guy gets completely just railroaded in the box. And it's like, oh, but he got a little piece of the ball first, so it's not a penalty. And it's like, no, it's really not how the rules are written. I mean, so there's a lot of leeway there for the referee. And I mean, again, I'm my little biased here because it's a Man United player, sure, but I thought a case could be made for a penalty. What did you guys think?
Well, Prashant, I'll ask you that then. What did you think about it?
I'm completely in with Jason what he said. It is a penalty. I mean, you just can't pull a guy inside the box and just claim that, I got the ball. Even if you got a touch, that's not allowed. It's pretty unfair. So personally, what I think is it should have been a penalty, but I also understand from where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is coming. He's kind of saying that, no, it was not exactly a penalty. It looked like Lindelof kicked the ball first, so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that it is a penalty. I mean, there was no reason why it should not be given a penalty. And second, why wasn't VAR called for that either? I mean, you had to look into it, but the referee said, no, go on. I mean, I certainly don't agree with that. If you have a doubt, you might as well get it checked.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that's the problem, is that obviously we'll go into it now. I mean, the fact is that they're not using the screens on the pitch, which obviously has cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to be installed into each Premier League ground, and it's not getting used. I think it's been used once by Martin. Was it Michael Oliver? Michael Oliver, that's it. Michael Oliver has been the only one that used it. And it might make more sense for the pitch referee to go to the screen and say, well, I was unsighted by this. Actually, I was talking to one of the Palace fans, and they were saying, well, McTominay is actually blocking the referee's view. So if he goes on to and looks at the screen, he'll say, oh, well, I must have missed that part where Lindelof obviously bundles him over and then gives it as a penalty. So what do you think? Do you think that, Jason, do you think that maybe they should go one way or the other? Should they go for just having the hub and then get rid of the screens, or should they just have the screens and get rid of the hub?
Well, I think you're kind of stumbling on the biggest problem with VAR that exists, and I think you're both right on with it. I think, Prashant, you're definitely brought up a good topic here, and Arjun, I think you're hitting on a very important point as well. I think that the fact that it's so disjointed. I mean, in the States, we've had replay for almost all sports in some form for the last 5 to 10 to 15 years, depending on the sport, right? And what's been the push is moving everything central. Like for hockey, there's Toronto. In Toronto, Canada, they have this war room where any kind of questionable call, they're all looking at it. In the NFL, there's a replay booth, and they're the ones that look at it. And it's really not the official who makes the call. I'm fine either way. I'm fine with it being the official with the monitors or it being a centralized hub. But I think what we're talking about is why these problems still are happening, because it's different rules in different places. Like the referee yesterday he obviously didn't want to look at that. He said, nope, I called it on the field the way I called it, and I think it's fine, and it's not a foul, and I'm not going to look at it. And meanwhile, another referee could be officiating the game, and one who's more comfortable going to the monitor, they might have gone to the monitor and had a completely different result that affects standings and affects Champions League and affects bottom lines and checkbooks and managers getting sacked, based on the fact that it's a different person refereeing the game. I mean, to me, that can't be the case. Like, to me, I think what you guys are alluding to is accurate. Like, I think it needs to either all be centralized or all be, monitor or all, whatever. But you have to choose one. It can't be this, because then it's no better than just having no replay at all. Because if you're going to apply the rules differently, you're going to end up with the same controversy. It's just going to be different ways, right? I mean, that's just the way I feel about it.
Just to add one more point to what Jason is saying, I was just thinking about a random incident which usually happens in a football pitch. Let's say if a striker gets past a defender and the defender tackles him from behind, and if it's inside the penalty box, the first thing what happens the referee does is he always points to the spot, because more likely or not, it is always the defender catching the player first and then the ball. That's a very common phenomenon. In yesterday's event, what exactly happened was it was one-on-one with Victor Lindelof. Like you said, Scott McTominay blocked the referee's view. So if you're not sure of a decision, why give it in the first place? You might as well just wait, watch, then consult. More than the decision which went in the favor for us, or let's say United as a matter of team, what irks me more is for the fact that I understand there is technology and it is given at your disposal. Why not use it? I mean, we understand you're human beings, you can make mistakes, but I'm sure you can avoid as well. Things which you're not sure, might as well take help of technology. There's nothing wrong in it.
I think they did look at it, but they could only look at it from the stoppage of play, which was the goal. But no, I do see your point. I think they needs to go one way or the other. And I think they are going to have a look at that over the break that they have during August and probably September as well. And we'll have to see how that impacts next season. But for the moment, we'll just say that United are still fifth after that win. They're still level on points with Leicester, but obviously a couple games left. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But first, the two goals from Rashford and Martial, I think they were the two real bits of quality in that game. Jason, I'll ask you to talk about Rashford's goal. How brilliant was that he sat down Van Aanholt and Ward?
Rashford's goal, oh my gosh, it was just he just continues to get better, I think. I never really thought of him as a player who could do that, like those kind of moves in the box to get himself free. He seems to, usually find himself in the right place to score goals, but he's becoming, it's almost like he thinks he needs to keep up with Greenwood and Martial, huh? It's almost like they're having a competition within themselves, like to see, or amongst themselves, to see who could, do it the best. I thought that was maybe the best goal he's ever scored. What did you think?
I thought it was a really great finish. It was just really nice, well composed, something we haven't really seen a lot from Rashford in the last few years. I mean, this year he's actually really adapted well. He's more clinical. He's much more composed in front of goal. And I think really that finish really demonstrates how much he's grown under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I have to say it was a really good finish, and it's his 22nd for the season. He's got 30 goal contributions in all competitions. I think that just shows how much he's grown in the last 12 months. We'll say someone else who has grown a lot is Anthony Martial, who obviously got the second goal. Prashant, do you want to go in a bit of detail into that one?
Sure. What I always said to my fellow friends or, United fans or neutral football fans is that if I had to use a word to describe Anthony Martial, the word would be enigma. The man is magic. But the biggest problem or his biggest enemy is his consistency. I mean, you think about it, he's always been lauded as someone who's got potential, but he's not able to do it on a consistent basis week in, week out. And this season, Anthony Martial, after having the number 9 jersey, has evolved as a footballer, let alone a striker or a forward player. Yesterday, Anthony Martial was a silent showstopper. As a striker, what I personally always believe is if you have someone who can drag defenders to the side, what it helps is it gives some other people the space and the angle to shoot. Yesterday, Mamadou Sakho was completely on Anthony Martial, and Anthony Martial did the same thing again and again and again, which was to drag him outside. As soon as you drag him outside, what exactly happened was Rashford started getting space. And like Jason said, when you see Rashford's finish, you clearly saw he dummied two players because they were committed to one side and suddenly they had to move to the other side. And that's a sign of an intelligent number 9. I'm pretty happy with Anthony Martial for two things. One, he's hungry. He wants to score goals. As a centre forward, as a striker, if you have someone who's very hungry, it's a good sign. He's not satisfied with what he's doing. And after the Sheffield game where he got a hat-trick and then he was substituted the next game after he scored a single goal, you could see that frustration visible in his face. And that's a good sign for a striker. Even yesterday, he started, of the front three what we had, Anthony Martial was the biggest fire or the spark which we needed because he did not let the defenders settle inside the game. And we all know once Anthony Martial is one-on-one with the keeper, there's only one way where the ball is going. He's not going to miss it often. One of games was the Southampton game, but he does not miss chances. He will not forgive you inside the box. That was a classic centre-forward finish. I'm really liking how Anthony Martial is developing as a player. One more fact to add for the matter is about the Rashford goal, to be very precise. Marcus Rashford is a confidence player. Manchester United players love Rashford because he's a good human being, good striker. Above all, he gets more confidence the amount of times he scores. Once he scored yesterday, you saw the whole team running towards him, not just because it was a goal, because he had been struggling to score goals often. And this season, Marcus Rashford has undergone a role transformation where he started to become more like a forward rather than just a striker. It's a bit of a development stage for both Martial and Rashford, and I'm quite liking this partnership. I mean, I just read a stat today. Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez have assisted each other 7 times. Martial and Rashford has equal that, And you can see the camaraderie between both of them when Rashford had a small bit of argument with Wilfried Zaha. It was Anthony Martial who walked into the fight and kind of, took Rashford's side. That's a good sign when you have two strikers backing each other. And that's exactly what Ole mentioned in the post-match conference as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact is that those two have that healthy competition, which is almost like sibling rivalry, really, because they're happy, they want to compete, they want to both outscore each other, but then they're both going to back each other when one gets in a tussle. I think that's really well put, Prashant. Yeah, of course. Let's not forget one of the players we've all taken for granted over the last few years, and maybe his form has dipped recently, but has really started to. Well, in this game, he really shone and was brilliant when called upon. David De Gea made some really great saves. 90 seconds in, he made a save denying Wolf Zaha. Hat-trick of saves in the first half for Ayew and Milivojevic in the dying embers of that game with a great free kick, and he claws it away for a corner. And then Zaha on the break, and McCarthy, he stopped from scoring at all. And he has the most clean sheets in the Premier League for any Manchester United goalkeeper. I mean, Jason, was he back to his best then?
I don't know if I'd say back to his best, because his best is, when he was, the best keeper in the world, it was otherworldly. But it got to the point yesterday when I almost forgot what year it was. You know what I mean? Like the saves he was making were just, the old style of stops, like where you expect him to stop everything. And even the saves that were actually, not easy, he made them look easy. Like there was a shot, I forget exactly when it was in the game, but it was, a pretty decent chance from the middle of the box. And it was rifled at him with pretty good pace. I mean, it was right at him, but he saves it like it was nothing. He just casually pops it over the bar. And it's like, you look at the replay and you're like, that was actually a pretty decent save. That wasn't like a simple, shot to deal with. I don't know if you remember the exact shot I'm talking about, but it was just, solid save. And then, of course, he made a couple of just, tremendous saves, at least two that I can think of. A diving one to the corner of the box, and then he had one when he went almost post to post on a free kick. So yeah, it was amazing to watch him play like that. Hope he could continue that form for the rest of the year, the last couple of games, because he's a difference maker when he plays like that.
Of course, yeah. And another player who's obviously, he didn't have the best game actually, last two games actually, but has been so influential for United all season. Mason Greenwood hauled off after about an hour, I think, for Jesse Lingard, which was a surprise decision for Solskjaer. He's obviously not played as well in the last couple of games. Do you think that's something to do with, well, Solskjaer said it might be something to do with that ankle injury. Prashant, do you think that maybe he just needs a little bit of time off? He's obviously, it's his first full season. He's 18 years old. He can't be expected to play brilliantly every game, can he?
I mean, I certainly agree with you. I mean, it's his first full season. You can't expect him to deliver a 10-on-10 week in, week out. And it's too much to ask from the young man as well. But what I would like to add, for a matter of fact, is that he should be given a week off. Like, let's say, let's not start him in the FA Cup as of now. I would just give him a week off because that ankle seemed bad. And he was not very comfortable running at defenders. And we know that when Mason Greenwood runs at you, you know he's going to finish. He's got a wicked right and a left foot. And like most people say, you don't know from where he's going to shoot. But there's another aspect to the game which Mason Greenwood has to understand right now, that teams are going to figure him out. There will be times where he will not be given space. In the Southampton game, as well as yesterday's game, you could see managers yelling from the side, for a matter of fact, that do not give him space. And that's exactly what both these teams did. They just did not give him space. And this is where Mason Greenwood needs to find another gear in his armory and then say, you know what? I know I'm not going to get space. Now what do? Do I run at the defender? Do I take him on? Do I move inside? It's a time for, Mason Greenwood as a footballer to understand that, can I do this? Can I do that? It's just one of those days where, things didn't work out for him. But having said that, I also agree for the fact that, Ole shouldn't have started him, my personal belief. And the reason why he shouldn't have started him is because once he's not fit, why risk him in this game? I understand top four is important and he's one of the best right wingers what we have in this current team. But, I am not very comfortable or a fan of starting a player when he's not fully fit. Might as well give him a week off. You never know how the injuries will turn out. So, yeah, I was not very comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to say... Sorry, what were you going to say, Jason?
Oh, I was going to say, Arjun, I just wanted, before you moved on, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I sort of did mean to cut you off at the same time. I think what Prashant's saying is dead on with Greenwood. I don't know if I'd want to sit him just because he could be such a good decoy, but to me, the telltale sign, and tell me if you agree with this, Prashant and Arjun, is he had a really, a grade A chance on his favored foot, and he barely got anything on it. Did you catch that attempt? It was I believe in the second half where he had a ball passed to him right across the goal. At this point in Greenwood's development, you expect him to just smash it into the net. He barely got anything on it. Do you remember that attempt?
I do, yes. Yeah. I think that just sort of shows maybe he's still a bit he is still probably quite bruised from that game against Southampton. And I think it probably might be in his best interest and United's best interest to rest him, like you said, Prashant, against Chelsea. Maybe start Dan James, who can offer a bit more pace and width and can draw players away from the likes of Rashford and Martial. So that'll be interesting to see how they do set that up. And before we go on to that, there is something that actually, Prashant, you raised. It's about the potential signing of Jadon Sancho. People, obviously, some fans actually saying don't need to sign Jadon Sancho because we've got Mason Greenwood. But You've been very passionately against that opinion. Do you want to go into a bit of detail about that?
Sure. So let's break this problem into two parts, okay? So the first part is we have Greenwood, who is, let's say, a very promising youngster, and we have been playing him in the right wing for quite some time. God forbid something happens to him. He's injured. What do you do then? Do you go back to the drawing board, change your tactics again, go with a 4-4-2 or whatever? Do you introduce someone like Dan James on the right-hand side? Or you try and play a Jesse Lingard or a Mata, so on and so forth. I mean, you're out of squad depth anyways. Mason Greenwood is your best right winger. You need to have a backup for him. When I say a backup, does not mean that I want to replace Mason Greenwood. It's a big misconception that, when you sign a player, you are replacing him. No, you are not. Think about this. In the 98-99 treble winning season, we had 5 strikers. 5 strikers, all of them different from each other. York and Cole, proper 2 number 9s. Who do we have on the bench? Teddy Sheringham, who's a fox in the box, a very intelligent striker in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You already have 4 people who can, come on and score goals and then change the profile of the game altogether. Similarly, in this case, the reason why I stress always that we need a Jadon Sancho, that man is direct. One of the key factors what has always influenced me to say that Jadon Sancho is the next big thing in world football is because I judge wingers basis how direct they are. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of someone saying that wingers should have work rate, so on and so forth. I like players who are ready to take on defenders. Jadon Sancho is a showman. If you observe how he plays in Dortmund, he's someone who will cut in, who will run you. And if you block him, he's going to come at you again. You can never have a settled game with respect to a Jadon Sancho. And you need those kind of guys in your team if you are challenging for the title, for the FA Cup, Europa, Champions League, whatever. You need such characters. The second point, which, somewhere down the line people forget this is, we are in a year of pandemic. Not a lot of clubs have funds to go. Real Madrid yesterday, Florentino Perez has clearly said that, we are not going to sign any big players because the transfer market does not allow us to. Not a lot of big guys can come for Jadon Sancho. I think apart from Man City, I don't think anyone has got the funds to even do that. You are getting a world-class winger or a forward, and there is not a single competition for you. This is the best thing what can happen to us. Put this thing in perspective. Next year, when the pandemic is settled, hopefully, all the big wigs will have the money to splurge, spend. You are going to be in a spot of bother because then it becomes Jadon Sancho's wish where he wants to. Right now, still, yes, he's got a wish, but we have a very promising project. And hence I say that, Jadon Sancho is needed, and so does Gary Neville as well, because yesterday in the pre-match he said that just because you sign Jadon Sancho doesn't mean Mason Greenwood's career is over. It just means that he has to raise his level to, raise his game to the next level. And that's important for a footballer that, there is always competition breathing down his neck or else the footballer gets stagnated. So that's a very important point even Gary Neville made.
Absolutely. I think you can't just rely on just one person to play in that role for a whole season, especially when you play about 50 games. If you play in Europe and both cup competitions domestically and obviously the Premier League too. Jason, do you agree with that stance that Prashant has?
I completely agree. I've always completely agreed because it always cracks me up because I see it all the time. I always see whenever someone transfers in, I see people say things like, okay, well, that means we should sell off this player. And it's like, why? Like, when Sir Alex had this thing going, we had 2 squads that legitimately could have competed for top 4 on every year. And you need it because you're trying to win FA Cup, you're trying to win either Europa or Champions League, and you're trying to win the title. So you're already competing on 3 fronts. And then in a regular year, you have 1 million friendlies, and you have 1 million, you have people on international break. You have people who are injured. I mean, we saw it really against the Southampton game. How much did the squad change when Greenwood, Bruno, and Pogba sat? We became essentially Crystal Palace, right? In the second half of that game, playing, trying to run out the clock and hold on to a 2-1, because we lost our quality. We've seen it this year where we've had injuries and we've had to run out squads starting Pereira and starting Jesse Lingard, who and not that I dislike Jesse Lingard, I actually like Jesse Lingard and think he could be a good player if he ever got his head on straight. But we were starting an out of form Pereira and an out of form Lingard week after week because we had no other options, right? So the viewpoint that we don't need him because we have Greenwood, I just don't understand. If Greenwood's good enough, he'll find his place. We saw it. I'll bring up a lesser footballer just because he's not, nowhere near this level of player, but we saw it with Ashley Young, right? He was a forward. Then they got forwards who were better than him. So we went and played wing. Then he played midfield. Then he went and played left back. If you're good enough, you'll find a spot in the squad. And Greenwood seems to be good enough. So I feel like we'll figure out a way to get them all playing. Or not. You know what I mean? So, the idea that people don't want a world-class player because they have a guy who's played well for a couple of games. I love Greenwood, but I'll take world-class players everywhere if you let me. Honestly, I'd love to be Man City or to be Liverpool. That'd be great. I'd love to win a title sometime in the next year or two.
Just to add a point. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Just to add a point to what Jason said. Let's go back to the not pretty old like a treble-winning season or something like that. Let's go back to something like 2009 and 10. Do you guys remember how many strikers we had? We had a Michael Owen. We had Rooney. We signed Berbatov just a season before on the transfer day deadline. Now, just think about it that we have players who are all different from each other. And Owen is not a Berbatov. A Berbatov is not a Rooney. Now, what it gave option to Alex Ferguson was that he could kind of tweak his squad here and there. He had a different profile of players for different game and all of them contributed equally. And not to forget that was the same season we sold off Ronaldo and we got Michael Owen for free, who's a very different striker than what we have always traditionally had. So you need these kind of players not as a backup options. These are different profile of players, and the way how football is evolving, you would have certain players who would click for some formats, some wouldn't. And hence, I think why Igalo signing was so important for us. He offers us something much different than any of our front three offers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the fact is that any title-winning squad has excellent squad depth, and we're just not quite there yet. But hopefully, by the end of the summer transfer window, which will be, I believe, 10 weeks long, we should have at least 2 or 3 signings in, as would be expected, really, from a club which brings in such revenue. It's just whether the transfer negotiator Ed Woodward can actually sort himself out for one transfer window and actually get us the signings we need. But that will remain to be seen for now. But what's next for United is, of course, in 2 days' time they will be playing Chelsea in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. And while Chelsea go into this game a little bit worse for wear, no Kante, no Gilmore, it would seem. Couple other injuries here or there. United look to be having a fully fit squad. Shaw and Williams are likely to be back and ready for the game. Firstly, I'll ask you this, Jason. How do you see United lining up? Do you think they'll make a lot of changes, or do you think they'll try and win the FA Cup?
I think at this point, Ole's got to sit everybody down and say, look, it's gut check time. You could rest in a month. I know it's tough. I know it's grueling. I know you're exhausted, but we have a chance to lift 2 trophies and make Champions League. So I think they need to treat it act as if it's another regular season Premier League match. I think you have to roll out the same squad. I think you have to just get these guys to buy into, and it's almost like a Rocky movie. I know you're tired. I know you see 3 of them out there, but just you got to run the same squad out to me. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I just think they have to push on all sides. Really, I think it's I don't think it's good enough just to get top 4. I don't think that's. I mean, obviously it shows progression from last year, but silverware is what United's all about. And I think if they can't push for top 4 and challenge for silver at the same time, it's not good enough, really, from the United that Ollie promised, I guess, if you can look at it that way.
Yeah.
I think the fact is that Chelsea, they've been getting the wins that they need to. Obviously, the Palace game, the Villa game. Not Villa. Yeah, the Palace game, the Villa game, the Norwich game. But they're really susceptible at the back. They've got the problems. Obviously, the left back's been an issue. The centre backs, obviously, the partnership Rudiger and Christensen are weak points. Tomori's not played a lot of football. Zuma's probably their most consistent defender, and he's not quite there. The attackers have really good games. Pulisic obviously developed into a really great player since the lockdown's begun, but they have their weaknesses, they have their limitations, and I think United have a better team overall than Chelsea, and I think they have everything to beat them, and then go and host West Ham and get the win there, because then Chelsea have got Liverpool at Anfield, and Liverpool want to win after that shoddy performance against Arsenal, and obviously they're lifting the trophy there, so they'll want to win on that day. And Tottenham are playing Leicester, and you'd expect Tottenham to give Leicester problems. And so, this is a good week a good 7 days for United to get 3 wins out of 3. Get to they could very well get to 3rd place and get to an FA Cup final, which, I mean, obviously City are playing tomorrow, and that could cause problems because, I mean, City are obviously one of the best teams in England. You have to say probably the 2nd best team in England overall this season. And that's why that's obviously why they're 2nd place. But yeah, they have obviously shown that they are a dangerous team. And even though we've beaten them 3 times, they're still more than capable of beating us just as much as we're capable of beating them. So honestly, United just have to win, and they have to put out a strong side and fight through basically through the lack of fitness or tired legs that might happen. Prashant, how would you line up that team? How would you keep Romero in goal or De Gea, and how would you see that whole lineup going?
I would believe that Ole would start his, the 2nd string team, the one which we played against Norwich. Yeah, I am not very convinced that we are going for the FA Cup at all. I mean, yes, there's one player in Chelsea which I think we should give a mention. That is Olivier Giroud. The man is in red hot form. He's a very intelligent striker. And to be very honest, I don't like Olivier Giroud as a striker coming up against our centre backs, whoever that may be it Lindelof or Maguire, or do we start Eric Bailly, whatever, because he's got this big knack of pulling centre backs out, and when you pair him with an Harry Maguire, Giroud and Maguire are both slow, but somewhere down the line, Olivier Giroud is smarter. So it will cause a problem. And coming back to the lineup, I think we will go with the 2nd string team. I'm not very sure that we are going to go for the FA Cup because this team, I understand what Jason said, that, you have to motivate them and try to tell them, guys, we can lift 2 trophies, etc., etc. I completely agree with it, but I don't think these guys have the legs to do so. I mean, after 65 minutes in the Southampton game, even yesterday, those players look completely tired, distraught to a certain extent. I mean, somewhere down the line, you need to give these guys a break. But having said that, I'm not very, I'm not very pessimistic when I look at the lineup as well. I'm sure, the regulars would start. Someone like Maguire would start. I think Eric Bailly would be, preferred next to him. Wan-Bissaka would be given a, run again. I would want to see Brandon Williams ahead of Luke Shaw in the Chelsea game because, like you rightly said, their defense is weak and Brandon Williams has got the pace. So it'll be interesting if Ole starts Brandon Williams. I'm sure he would be, buzzing to go, considering it's such a big game. In the midfield, I want Nemanja Matic to start. I understand, it would have to be a 2nd string. But even yesterday when we saw McTominay was not very comfortable in that role. I mean, as much as we would like to believe that Matic would groom him for further, but we need a Matic replacement. And, our gears changed as soon as Nemanja Matic came in yesterday. We looked much more settled in the midfield. There was not a scrappy kind of a moment. He knew what he was doing. I think that's called as experience, and in a game like this where we are going for, let's say, a situation where top four is also important. So is the FA Cup for certain, for certain duration. You need Nemanja Matic's experience in the middle of the park. I expect Fred to start ahead of Bruno. I want Bruno to be, given a rest so that he can come on in the 50th or 60th minute if needed. But I want Pogba to start as well because he's had a very bad Southampton game, and Crystal Palace was not something very special as you expect of him. This Chelsea midfield is not a very great in pressing, or if I had to say that they will give him amples of space, and we all know that if you give Pogba a lot of space, he's going to spray balls of fun. And in terms of the front, in terms of the front three, what I would like to see is I would want to see James, Rashford in the Ighalo in the center, James, Ighalo, and if possible, if just give Lingard a chance on the right wing and see how does he fare. But I'm not very, I'm not a huge fan of starting the same 11 what we started in the Palace game or the Southampton game. Those guys need rest because the West Ham game is crucial for us. And I don't want to take chances in the league at all. I'm fine if we don't get the FA Cup for a matter of fact. But I need the Champions League back because I don't want to go on a Thursday night to a place in Ukraine and then watch them at 3 o'clock, at 2 o'clock in late night in India. I want the Tuesday night Champions League anthem at Old Trafford, where the hair on the back of my neck stands and when we are lining up against the best in the world. Because United as a club is built for that. We are not built for Europa. I understand last 4-5 years were difficult, so on and so forth. But I need the Champions League back, and that's my top priority.
Thank you. Jason, would you agree with that? Would you say that we should put in a second string side, or would you rather maybe keep a stronger team?
Yeah, I definitely hear what he's saying. And I think, when you put it all line it all up together, Champions League's got to be the top. You have to figure out a way to get in. We have two avenues right now to get into Champions League, but the most obvious one, the one staring us right in the face, is through the league. Right? It's literally in our own hands. Like, we don't even have to worry about what other clubs do because we're sitting there tied with Leicester. If we win against West Ham, no matter what the scoreline is, it's all in front of us. Leicester, end of the season, you just beat them, you go to Champions League, right? So it's just two matches. It's almost like a semifinal and a final, right?
Yeah.
But then the other piece of it is, like, we want to lift silverware. Like, it's like you said, Arjun, this is what Ole was supposed to be all about, was where Man United, we win trophies. Right. And I remember making fun of Arsenal fans. I used to tell this joke all the time. Right. What's the difference between, an Olympic sprinter and an Arsenal fan? And the answer is that the Arsenal fan celebrates fourth place. Right. So I don't want to be that club that just tries to get the fourth place trophy. Right. I want to get some, but the ironic twist there is Arsenal lifted a lot of FA Cups in that time period, right? So, honestly, ultimately, Ole's got the finger on the pulse of the squad. In front of us, it has seemed like when the clock hits the hour mark, they do seem to lose some steam, but then they pick it back up toward the end of the game, right? At least they did against Crystal Palace. So maybe you could start a backup type squad and then rotate people in like they did against Norwich. Maybe they can do something like that. I didn't even think about the goalkeeping situation. We don't know what promises were made to Romero. Ole might have said to him at the beginning of the season, look, you're starting every FA Cup match. So if that's the case, it's got to be Romero in goal, right? You can't backtrack off that promise now. I don't know if the promise was made or not, but it certainly may have been because he has started every match. But of course, has played against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. Right. I believe, yes. So, it's a catch-22. Ultimately, he's got to have a finger on the pulse of the squad. If he thinks they can gut it out, I would go with the same 11. But if they're gassed and they literally can't do it, then you have to make changes. The only thing you could do. I mean, this match, we just finished the match less than 24 hours ago, and we got one in about 24 hours from now. So it's fast and furious.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough. It's tough
well,
call.
What is your prediction for that game? Do you see United winning it?
I think if they can get the squad, that's the normal squad, maybe with Romero in goal, I think they get the result. I think if they try to do the mix and match game, it's going to be a dogfight. I could see. See, that's the problem too, right? If you try to play the mix and match game and rest people, you're liable to end up, with a 1-1 scoreline in extra time.
Yeah.
So then,
like we did against Norwich.
Right. We didn't rest anybody against Norwich because everybody pretty much played a whole game. It just was in different shifts. Yeah. Right. So I don't know. I think they're going to get out a result. I really believed from a while back that we were going to win FA Cup. So I'm going to have to stick with that. That we'll figure out a way to get past them, maybe in penalty kicks or something.
Yeah. So you'd say extra time then?
I think it's going to go extra time because I think that's just how it's gone this season for us. Like whenever we try to get people rest, it just never works. So.
Well, that's a fair guess to be honest. Obviously, not much separating the sides in the league. Prashant, how would you say? Would you say that United will go into extra time with Chelsea, like what Jason said?
No, I think United can beat them comfortably because their defense is not that great. One of the reasons why Frank Lampard was beaten 3 or 4 times by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is that Lampard wants to play up high in the pitch, and any team which kind of plays a high defensive line, we are going to thrash them because we've got pace to beat. Even if you start someone like Dan James, who's not someone as clinical as a Rashford or Martial or Greenwood, he is going to cause you problems. And somewhere down the line, I feel that we would beat this Chelsea team, somewhere like 2-1. I don't see this game going an extra time, to be very honest, because I think both the teams have got quality, but somewhere down the line, I think United's attack is a bit more potent when I compare to a Chelsea defense.
Thank you. Yeah. I see United winning. I'll be honest. I don't share your optimism. It's going to be comfortable, Prashant, but I do see United winning, maybe 2-1, or maybe making it 3-1 in the late stages. But I think that Solskjaer's got his tactics right against Lampard 3 times out of 3. I hope it'll make it 4 times out of 4. And just quickly before we finish, West Ham predictions. Just quickly, do you think it will be the Premier League usual 11 that started obviously against Southampton, or do you think maybe there'll be changes? And if so, what scoreline? Prashant, I'll ask you first.
We'll go all guns out blazing against West Ham. We will go with the same 11 which played against Southampton. I don't think we are going to risk anything in that game at all. And it's the last game and it's at Old Trafford, so the players would be gunning to go and kind of give everything what they have. And I think United should beat West Ham comfortably, and I hope David Moyes does a huge favor on us. And it's pretty important for us as well. And yes, it will be the same lineup. And I think at Old Trafford, when we play West Ham, we are going to take them apart. I somewhere believe the 3-0 or 4-0 will be back.
Thank you. Jason, would you agree with that?
Well, I think they're going to go for it in that match and really try to win big, because now the goal differential is in play. I mean, for a while it was 9, which seemed insurmountable, and it always seemed like we were going to need to beat Leicester outright to win, to get that 4th place and to get Champions League. But I think Ole, I mean, you could tell from yesterday, they were clearly trying to win 3 or 4-0 in that match. They were trying for that 3rd goal. They were pressing almost as if it was tied in that last 5 to 10 minutes of the match, including extra time, including time added on. So I think, much like when we lost the title years back on goal differential, Ole has that similar mindset of not letting goal differential be the reason we're denied anything. So I love it if we were set up in a situation where we could draw or beat Leicester to get Champions League. So if you can get a 3 or a 4-0 against West Ham, who's not a side that seems particularly interested most matches, especially if they go behind. And it's also a squad you can't give belief to. Like, you can't let them get a goal early, because then, they'll actually... I almost feel like when I watch them play, I don't know if I don't want to say they quit. I don't ever want to go that far, but they seem to be a different squad when they feel like they have a chance to win than when they're just buried. So, the goal differential and everything, if we could set up a situation where we're like even on goal differential going into that match against Leicester, or we're up a goal where all we need to do is draw, I think Ole is going to try to set that up. I don't think we're going to try for a 1-0. I think we're going to try for a 2 or 3.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how those games pan out. Obviously, I'll be doing audio commentary for those games on our YouTube channel. But for the moment, that is all we have time for today. Thank you for listening, and thank you to both Jason and Prashant for joining me. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Thank you so much, Arjun. It was always fun. Sorry about the dogs.
It's not a problem.
Thank you, Arjun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's obviously it's your first podcast with us. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Tune in next week, in which we will be discussing these games and hopefully some wins, and looking ahead to United's next match against Leicester, the final game of the season, potentially the one to compete for 4th place and maybe even 3rd place as well. But for the moment, if you have any questions or any topics you'd like for us to discuss next time, please comment below on this YouTube video and we will give you a shout out live on the podcast. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for all of our content.